All right. Welcome, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started since it's 1 o'clock. My name is Jessica Crayo, and I'm with the Iowa Coalition for Integration and Employment and a member of the Employment First Leadership Team. Welcome to May's Community of Practice. I'm happy to have you here today. A couple of housekeeping things before we dive into customized employment. Keep letting folks in here. We'll be recording today's session. We'll be sure to share the recording as well as any materials out to the mailing list. Thank you to the Center for Inclusive Design. They're providing our captioning today. Your stream text link is in the chat if you need that. Please feel free to grab that. If you have any questions or comments during the presentation, just throw them in the chat or use the hand raising function. And we'll dive right into that and get those questions answered or dive into some conversation. I think I've let everybody in. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. So today we're going to talk about customized employment. And I'll be sharing with you today, as well as my partner in crime, Corey Smith from Griffin Hammis Associates. Wade, Corey, hi. And then you'll also have a chance to hear from a number of providers who are providing customized employment, who've been doing that right over the past couple of years and participating in the customized employment or customized discovery projects, and who are now participating in the DIF work around customized employment. We'll hear from Diane and Tora, and then we have a ton of other great folks who've also been doing the work. Ashley's here, Eva, Tyler's done the work, Anita's here. I'm probably leaving somebody out. There's a lot of counselors on the call. Thank you so much for joining us. You guys can absolutely share your perspective and experience about customized as we go along here. I thought it might be fun to start us off with a poll. And of course I can't launch that, but the poll questions are up here on the slide. And if you would be so kind as to pop some of your thoughts or responses into the chat, and I'll read those out loud here. Sorry, I'm still admitting people, so I'm kind of doing double duty today with moderating and presenting. So tell us, do you know, is customized employment?
Yes, you want to share the screen? I can let people in.
Iowa practice.
What's that?
You want to share the screen? I can let people in.
Can you see my
I'll help
screen?
let people in, Jess. I'll watch it.
Oh, thanks, Amy. Hey, Amy, thank you so much. All right, can you see the screen? There should be a baseline poll. Perfect. Okay. Can you tell us, do you know, is customized employment a research-based best practice? True or false? Yes or no? And just pop that in the chat. Do you know, is customized employment considered integrated competitive employment? See what we got in here. Yes, 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 best practice. Lynn, false, true, false. All right. Is self-employment an appropriate outcome for individuals with disabilities? And do you know, does job development and employer engagement look the same for supported employment and customized employment? Or do those look different? So I've got some false, true, false, false, true, false. All right. Well, as we dive in here, we'll start to answer those questions and discover, right, what's true and what's false. So customized employment has really been an evolutionary process, right? It is absolutely built upon the shoulders of supported employment, right? And demonstration pilots around customized employment began back in the early 2000s, I should say, right? Through the Office of Disability and Employment Policy. And that work was even happening here in Iowa back as early as 2012, right? Through the Partnerships and Employment Grant. And Ellen Condon from the Rural Institute came here to Iowa, right, and worked with a number of you on the call to pilot the service here in Iowa. Corey and I also wanted to highlight or let you know, and we'll kind of dive into the definition here of customized employment. But customized employment was defined in the reauthorization of WIOA, and in fact became a mandated service, right? A service to be funded and provided by VR agencies. Customized employment is also in alignment with and supports things like Olmstead, right? And the CMS final rule, as customized employment always happens in the community. It always leads to employment, right? And competitive integrated employment or self-employment. And in fact, customized employment is considered a research-based best practice. It's soon to be an evidence-based practice. And that work has been happening over a number of years and will continue through the DIF work, both here in Iowa and a number of other states, right? The work that employment specialists and teams that are doing, working with employment seekers, continues to collect that data and research to let us know, right, what strategies and best practices are in fact evidence-based, right? And get us to those integrated competitive employment outcomes. So customized employment defined by WIOA is in fact competitive integrated employment for an individual with a significant disability. And it's always based on and always starts with the person in that individualized determination of strengths, their needs and their interests, right? And then employment is designed, created, negotiated, right? To meet that individual's specific abilities, those interests and skills, right? But also meets the needs of the business. And though we follow a strategic and intentional process or model, and we'll talk about some of that model and some of those strategies here today, it is a flexible process, right? That can meet the individual where they're at. So it's carried out through flexible strategies. Some of the values and beliefs and kind of those core values the customized employment embodies are ones that you are probably familiar with. But of course, in customized employment, we always assume that someone is employable, that they're ready, that they're competent, right? That they have contributions, or what we call personal genius. Again, it's a very individualized process. It really operationalizes what we call person-centered thinking and person-centered planning and action, right? It's always optimistic. CE in the process always allows us to see the possibilities, right? And it's creative. And again, though it's flexible, it is a research-based, structured, and intentional process, right? That informs things like living, learning, and working, because we're really learning about who the person is, what's their story, right? When and where are they at their best? Again, what are those contributions and skills? How are they best supported and how do they best learn? The process itself is continuous, it's cumulative, it's sequential, right? It follows, again, a process, a model, and it's outcome oriented. So for example, when we're done with discovery, we always end up with 3 verified vocational themes and a robust vocational profile, right? And customized employment as, again, as a model or as a process, it really mirrors the way that most Americans or students go about getting to work and getting work experiences. And what that means is it's a socioeconomic model versus a labor market approach or a medical model, in that, again, we're focusing on folks' interests, right? Interests are what directs job development and work experiences. We use our social connections and relationships, both personal and professional, right, to explore opportunities. And we really customize work, right, to our skills and our needs and our financial goals and what works best for us, right? So that kind of hits on that last point, right? We really focus on valued social roles, right? Not just any old job, but a job that brings value, and all the valued experiences in life, and is inclusion and is based in the community. So there are three main phases to customized employment. So when we talk about customized employment or say that word here in Iowa, we're talking about three primary phases. So what we call discovery, or here in Iowa, what's authorized as customized discovery through Voc Rehab. Customized job development then follows, and then consultative employment training and supports. In discovery, again, we're really focusing on learning and understanding somebody's strengths, their interests and conditions. Sorry. And we do that, right? Or that includes visiting or spending time with somebody in their home, talking to people who are important in their lives, coming alongside them when they participate in activities that are important to them, and creating opportunities for them to learn new things. And again, when we're done with discovery, which is an alternative, right, to traditional assessment, or those Voc evals that we do, right, or readiness activities, right? It's an alternative to that. It's a really getting to know somebody. And we come out with those three vocational themes that are verified, and we head into customized job development. And in that process, we really focus on and utilize what we call an informational interview, right? Interfacing and connecting with businesses that are in alignment with the person's verified vocational themes, right? And those interests and passions and skills. And we're really trying to understand and learn more about the business and the industry, right? And how somebody got started and what the business needs are, exploring not if there's a job or an opening, but what opportunities might exist to create, customize, and negotiate, again, a job that meets the needs of the person, including their financial goals. And then in consultative employment training and supports, right? Otherwise known as job coaching. But really in this process in CE, we really kind of take a different perspective. We're seen as more of a consultant to the business and the new employee. And we really work together to collaborate to develop a plan for onboarding and training that new employee. And in this case, as the job coach or the consultant, right? We are not necessarily the primary trainer and support for the person, right? We're really trying to facilitate those natural trainers and supports within the workplace so that we can fade when somebody has mastered, right, that task or those set of tasks that they're doing, and that direct communication is happening with the business, their manager, the employer, the coworkers, right? So that's just a kind of a brief overview in a nutshell, what CE is in those three phases. Corey, did I miss anything? You want to jump in? Just let me know. Sometimes when we're learning something and understanding what it is and how it's defined, it can be helpful to understand or explain what it's not, right? And this is kind of a concept that comes from a gentleman named Ike Powell. But customized employment, again, is not a type of vocational assessment or evaluation or opportunities to test someone, right? It's not a program or a service per se, right? It's a process, it's an approach, a method that provides us specific strategies, right, to help someone get to work. And so CE doesn't happen in a group setting, right? It should be happening in the community setting, individualized environments, right? Again, that match the person and make sense. It is not a labor market approach, and it's not traditional job placement. And that's not to say that those things are bad, right? It's just different than that. And we use different strategies to get to that competitive integrated employment outcome. We're not looking for the dream job in CE, which might seem a little confusing at first, but a dream job is very specific, right? And it can be narrow. And in CE, it's all about the possibilities and broadening those possibilities. And that's why we use things like vocational themes, that are big and broad and hold lots of job titles and job descriptions and tasks, right? Because that just opens up the possibilities for wage employment, customized employment, self-employment, maybe it's micro enterprise, right? So there's lots of options. But we do that so that there are lots of possibilities and we're not narrowed in or focused in on just this dream job. It's like, what is it about the dream job? What's the draw to that, right? So we always dig a little bit deeper in this process. And again, we're not paying attention to things like readiness and preparation and looking for job openings and filling out those apps. Because again, we're focusing on developing relationships with business and business owners and managers, particularly in small business, so we can circumvent that competitive process. And so again, because customized employment is flexible and individualized, there can be a variety of outcomes, right? And if you participate in customized employment training and mentorship, right, you're going to learn methods and strategies to create jobs, carve jobs, and develop maybe a resource ownership opportunity or self-employment. But again, the sky's the limit and there's lots of possibilities. Just a quick note or mention about, who's best served by customized employment. And I think our providers and counselors could talk to you a little bit about that too and share some of their experiences and what they've learned. But, first of all, we say CE is for anybody and everybody. Again, right, because it mirrors a typical experience that many of us utilize and those strategies that many of us utilize. But it can be very significant and impactful for individuals and students who might experience or who have experienced or who may be at risk of segregation or exclusion, or might have those stereotypical experiences in employment, or if they're a high school student, maybe it's those stereotypical work experiences or limited, right, work experiences. And again, CE is for folks who, are standard approaches, not because they're bad or wrong, but because they don't work for everybody, right? CE might be the best approach for those who we might have identified previously as sitting on our caseload for a long time, maybe difficult to place, maybe somebody's been in and out of a number of jobs, right? So CE is going to be a good place to start if we don't know where to start. Or again, if somebody's had limited to no experience, right? Because we're really going to open things up by getting more information, learning where folks are at their best. Corey, you want to share anything on this? Or any of the providers while we're kind of on this, counselors?
I know you guys are working hard on IPS, but what I found is in my experience is that customized also works really well with people with significant mental health issues, particularly those folks who have some kind of a criminal background or a criminal background in general that are never going to get through the human resource process. That, most small businesses, if you can weld or you can do something, you can walk off the back of somebody's truck, they don't really care if you shoplifted when you were a kid. So I did a training in North Carolina yesterday and worked with a group that pretty much everybody they work, a lot of people, everybody they work with is autistic. Well, this organization, everybody they work with has schizophrenia and has some kind of a legal background. And I think these practices work well for groups like that as well.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I like, as far as specialized populations, we work primarily with people with brain injury. And I was having a conversation with somebody with On With Life, which is an acute, post-acute facility here for that. And we were talking about how not only would customized discovery give us the opportunity for us to get to know the person, but a lot of the people that we serve don't really know themselves right now. Like they're a new person post-injury, and they haven't often had a chance. They went through this whole process that you said we go through naturally at one point, and then their life and really who they are changed. And now it's like they're starting out all over again. And so it's not that we need to get to know them, but we need to work to it as a team so that they also get to know who they are and what their strengths and abilities and interests are at this point in their lives.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well said, Diane. Well
Yeah.
said.
Yeah, and I think we've found that too across the projects. Diane, that's a great example. But also, again, kind of back to individuals, whether they're students or adults, but folks that maybe just haven't had a ton of work experience. Maybe they don't know what they're interested in. Maybe they don't know what they want to do. And that it seems to be a good approach. Again, of understanding that kind of what process they're embarking on. It's always helpful too if somebody's got family and a team involved, right? That they understand what CE is and what the process looks like and how they can support that process, right? That we have, engaged family and team players. That's always super helpful. Again, because we're really using things like time together, talking to those who are important to people, doing activities that are familiar to them, again, where they're at their best. These are the things that help us collect information in customized discovery. So again, why it's a great process, again, kind of depending on where someone's at and what their needs are. So it's not necessarily based on label, if you will, right? Disability label, but again, kind of what somebody's experience and somebody's experiences, what they're looking for, goals and stuff like that. So I think I did want to mention that right now, if you would like to offer customized employment to a student, they have to be in their last year of high school. So that may be a senior, they might be, 4+. But again, that has to be somebody that's in their last year of high school for that VR authorization specific to customized discovery. Should throw that out there. So what are we doing in the DIF project as it relates to customized employment? Well, we're really trying to focus on developing a group or a cadre of proficient CE professionals, and we're focusing on fidelity. So we're monitoring that, right? That service delivery and service documentation so that we're ensuring that we're meeting those quality standards, right? In the service delivery, again, in each of those 3 phases that we were talking about. And we do have 3 fidelity scales, right? One for each of those phases. We're also working to identify and build in-state CE trainers and mentors. I was really focusing on trying to build their structure and their infrastructure to support CE over the long term, right? So that means that the state, no longer wants to or can, right, rely on trainers and teachers and consultants, right, to deliver CE with fidelity, right, and build proficient or independent professionals in CE, right? That's got to be done within. So we're really focusing on mentoring and building up folks here in the state to become in-state experts to do that. And then again, working with partners kind of across the system to figure out, okay, well, what does that look like? And how are we going to fund and support that? And how are we going to continue to build quality CE services and professionals here in the state?
Hey, Jess, if I may, if you
Yeah,
go back,
please.
so within the structure, I'm Corey, I'm a job coach. I've worked doing this work for 30 years. And I've had situations where I've figured out how to make this a good business decision, right? And working with people, figuring out how to work with people with more significant disabilities and have that be a good business decision using rated funding strategies. My claim to fame is I'm crazy enough. I used 9 different funding sources for one guy to have a business. But what we found was, people more significant disabilities who needed more job coaching. Now that the rates are decent, we were able to pay a lot of bills. But I got to tell you, the voc rehab staff are being so positive and such partners on, figuring out how to make working with people with most significant disabilities a good business decision, right? There are some states where people won't do discovery in the summer because they're too busy doing pre-eds or work-based learning. And I know it's a challenge for a provider that, you're being asked to do benefits counseling. Maybe you have project search site, you're doing placement, you're doing all this stuff. But what we've been really working on, and Vienna and company, they've been just so, every minute people are working on this, and then you've got the customized employment rate of like $72 an hour. I'm challenging the people that I'm working with. It's like, give me anything you're doing in that 40 hours that isn't billable right now. And really, this isn't filling out applications. And what we found with the data comparing regular sport employment to customized for quite a while now is people are making more money, they're working more hours, they're reporting higher satisfaction, and they're requiring less job coaching, right? And they're staying in jobs longer. But it really takes some, building within the organizational structure and teaching people. So one of the things within that infrastructure that I can't brag enough about our partners with Voc Rehab, how supportive they're being and working with the providers that are willing to take the risk to get better at their craft, to do better work, to make this a good business decision. So we can pay bills, so we can pay people more. We're talking about professional positions here that, I think people stay in positions longer if they're paid better and if they're respected. So I think that's really part of my motivation, and just happy to be a part of this project.
That's great. So Corey touched on this a bit. So what are we focusing on this year one, right? That gets us through the end of September. We've identified what is actually 9 employment specialists, right? Folks who have already been trained in customized employment through previous work happening in the state. So they hold their ACRE CE certificate. Those employment specialists applied and were a part of a competitive process and selected to be a part of mentorship this first year as they continue to work with employment seekers. Right, these folks, again, were already delivering discovery and customized employment. And so we, excuse me, Corey, myself, and Ashley Lance are providing mentoring to them as they continue to work with employment seekers. That's going to probably look like, and again, I mentioned we were paying attention to fidelity and monitoring fidelity, right? So we're scoring, or we're looking closely at service documentation to see, are we doing things in a way that gets us our results, right? And that is in alignment with those fidelity standards. And that will hopefully move folks as we support them. It could be anywhere from 3 employment seekers to 6, right? Each employment specialist is different, but right, as Corey said, as they hone their skills, hone their craft, and become more independent in delivering the service with fidelity, right? They move on and have the opportunity to become in-state mentors if they want. And so we're providing that technical assistance virtually and in person throughout the entire process. And that's pretty intensive, right? Not only are they delivering the service every week, but they're getting support and TA from us. And so they've really demonstrated a high level of commitment, right, to this service and to this process, and getting really good at it. So it's really exciting. And let me see if I can tell you off the top of my head which providers those are that are participating right now in the DIF-CE project. So it's Children and Families of Iowa in Des Moines, Candeo in Des Moines, Arc of East Central Iowa in Cedar Rapids, Hope Haven Area Development Center in Burlington, Imagine the Possibilities in Jefferson, WCDC in Washington, MVP in Davenport, and probably forgetting somebody. 43 North Iowa, and Mason City will be joining us. So not participating in mentorship yet, We'll have staff participate in ACRE training here coming up in the late summer, early fall. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. Hopefully I got everybody. The top of my head, I think I did. If I didn't, shout out and let me know and kick me later. But we're really excited to have all those folks participating. And there'll be opportunities coming up again, as I said, like late here in the summer and fall, and then ongoing throughout the 5-year DIF projects for providers who have either been providing the service already or haven't, but are interested in doing so to get involved. So we're providing support and technical assistance, not only to employment specialists and job developers, but also CRP leadership, VR counselors. We'll be working with and interfacing with case managers and getting up their awareness and expectations around this. We've been working with families, right, as we work with employment specialists and job seekers, right? Families are a part of that. Students and schools and AEAs, right? Not only in the project, but we've been doing work with the Department of Ed too, right? To kind of see how CE interfaces with that work. And then of course, all that system building and partner work. This slide is just to say that those
Hey,
employment.
Jeff, can I jump in again real quick?
Yeah, please.
We can go back to that previous slide. We haven't got into this as much yet, but what some of this stuff, like, you know, I've been at this, we keep working and getting better, but I know that with a couple of people, we're working on the customized employment launch. And if we don't launch this correctly, we're just behind, right? We've got a couple of sites right now where there's concern that maybe the family has selected customized employment just as a way to stall till an opening in a day program comes up, or maybe we have somebody that's really concerned about benefits, or they have fears. And I think that before we've added this component this year with the customized employment launch, is we've really come up with some strategies that we're going to be using in the launch that I'm pretty excited about with the ARC and with CFI, that we're really going to be digging in with the launch. And I think the whole thing is going to go better, that if we launch the project correctly, we're not going back and fixing stuff. So, you know, every step, if we do mess something up, you know, if we don't get to know enough people, if we don't get to know the neighborhood, it makes the whole process more difficult. But I'm really excited, you know, some of the people have already been through ACRE training, that we've really kind of, you know, tried to improve all the competencies and all the strategies. But I know we're just launching a couple families, and I'm spending quite a bit of time with the employment specialists right now. You know, like, you know, one of the most important things about customized employment is people understanding what the heck it's like. It's like, you know, if you didn't know what we did, like, there's all these jobs out here. Why are you bothering us, right? Why don't you just go fill out some applications? But we know that, right? Well, the statistics show about 19% of people with intellectual disabilities after 30 years of support employment are working, and those strategies just aren't sophisticated or creative enough. That, you know, I know Tor and I have been looking at having the family understand what they're getting into.
Yes.
Is it, you know, we say it's the most important part of the process, is everybody understanding what they're getting themselves into. And I think that's
Absolutely.
just so imperative.
It really is. And it takes this whole team of people to kind of help that too, right? And they've got to know too. Yeah, and again, one of the reasons why the counselor role and educator role is so important in this too. So again, this slide, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. This is just to say that those employment specialists or job developers, or if it ends up being an educator or somebody tied to the AEA participating in this work, right? They start with that ACRE training, ACRE with an emphasis in CE, and then they move into mentoring. And it's a really exciting process. And not only do you get the one-on-one with myself or Ashley or Corey, that one-on-one mentorship and support and guidance, right? That can happen virtually and in person. We're also using our mentoring platform, and this is just a screen grab of that, but it really just supplements our process and really supports the employment specialist. Not only can they come here and get information, resources, tools related to the process and where they're at in that process, and again, what quality standards or fidelity measures are going to be looked at or evaluated within that specific stage or task. But this is also where we kind of share the documentation back and forth and give feedback and guidance on that and score fidelity. So it's just a tool that's new for Iowans and the employment specialists in Iowa to utilize this tool in conjunction with their mentor, and hopefully it's a helpful process. So that wraps up that part. Thank God, right? That's over. You can stop listening to me talk about it. But please, if you have any questions, again, kind of about what is this, or some of those foundational pieces, or questions around, the values or whatever, pop those in the chat and we'll get those answered. I think we wanted to spend the rest of the time today just allowing you to hear from, again, those providers and counselors. I'm so excited to see a lot of counselors on the call today who do have experience with CE2. And Tyler's here with MFP. Prior to moving to MFP, Tyler was also implementing CE in his work. So we thought it might be nice for y'all to kind of hear from them about their perspective and experiences and kind of how things are going and how implementation is going for them. And to ask your questions and kind of share and go back and forth that way. So I don't know if Tora or Diane, like who wants to go first, but if one of you two will get us going, and then we'll just kind of jump in and
All you pick.
Huh?
Unless Tora wants to go first, you can pick. Who
You
goes
want to get
first?
going, Tora?
Yeah, I could, my throat might go in and out, but when it goes out, then you can jump in.
You got it.
Because mine, it's gonna go in and out. My name is Tora Phelps. I'm an employment specialist in Cedar Rapids. I work for the ARC of East Central Iowa. When I started doing customized employment, I fell in love with it. I don't want to do anything else. If I could, that's all I do. It's a completely different way of getting to job development. It'll blow your socks off. And the reason I say this is because you are no longer competing to get to gainful employment. You are learning about someone. It is a person-centered, and to me, it has even though I'm very creative, it has this kind of mysterious way of getting to know someone, no matter what their disability and abilities are. You put these things together in this kind of very interesting way and it's always based on positive things. It's always their strengths, whatever kind of things they enjoy, they really like. You're only educated by things that you find that they don't like. So for example, if they don't like working outdoors, that's still a strength for you because you've put that on your knowledge checklist. So you're still using that as a positive piece of these pieces that you're putting together in this puzzle. I work a lot with non-speaking people, people that have severe disabilities, and it just makes it better for me to investigate because I'm like, okay, here we go, and it's so enjoyable and it's so heartwarming to get to know these individuals and that they want to work and that they're trying in their own ways to communicate they want to do something different besides sit around the house and go to day hab. Those are usually their two options that they have going. They might do different things at home, but it's very interesting when you do the home visits. And in some way, I'm like, I get the conversation rolling and then I'll say, let me see your house, or what do you do today, or what do you like doing? And before you know it, we're going on this tour around their house, and they're showing me their bedroom, and they're showing me their switch thing, and they're showing me their drones that they go up and down with, and comic books. And you start putting these pieces together, and all of a sudden you realize that they organize stuff. I found out somebody played a musical instrument, just all kinds of things. And you start putting these skills and these pieces together. It's so person-centered. It's all about what makes them them. And you start doing different activities together, and the pieces start to fall into place. And once you start realizing this, and you start using their team, their parents, their friends, maybe a pastor, maybe a neighbor, it could be anybody that forms their team, you start gaining all this knowledge. And you go in, you find out different other things in the community. Maybe you take them into the community and you do an activity that has to do with making a guitar, or going to a guitar shop, and they get to look around, and they get to shop and do some things, or work with the person that cleans the guitars, or whatever. And then all of a sudden they're taking guitar lessons, and then they really like to sing and play the guitar, but they have echolalia, and they didn't do anything before except to repeat what you said, but now they sing. And then the next thing you know, they decide they want to do gigs, and they're playing for these little homes and this and that. And then self-employment becomes the thing of the day. So you all of a sudden you're doing self-employment with somebody in customized discovery. How did you get there like 14 weeks ago? And that's how it happens. I mean, this job and how you do this customized employment is amazing. And I wish everybody could just kind of see how this happens. It's fabulous. There's no magic wand. There is steps in fidelity and making sure we give quality service. But once you get hooked into it, it comes naturally, and it's not rocket scientist. It's not a rocket science. We have mentors. We can show you how to do all that, but it's just a matter of getting to know the person and putting these pieces together by doing the work it takes to find their strengths and their wants, and getting them to explore what you find that they enjoy, they like, and what they like. That's kind of the gist of it. The work part kind of becomes, I think, more for me later, when I'm looking for, if we kind of run into the business part and making those social connections, then I might have to do a little digging and finding a place that, oh, I want to explore that more, or, oh, there's an interest here and I need to make an informational interview, but once you do the informational interviews and you're starting to make those job connections, once you get that part, you're okay, because you go in there and you're basically just connecting with the business owner, saying, how did you find this interesting? How did you get started? And it's just one big conversation. And if you're good at making conversation, you don't have a problem. And I'm a yapper, so you just ask them questions. How did you get excited about this? What got you started? And they start into this, 20, 30 years ago, my blah, 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 and they just start talking. And once that you'll know it'll be a connection between that business owner and your job seeker. And once you have two people interested in the same thing, it's a match made in heaven. You might have to do a little negotiation or conflict resolution, but generally it's very easily done. It's just a matter of kind of figuring out what that job seeker needs, what the business owner needs, and kind of meshing them together. It's usually not hard to do, and it comes out pretty well. But I don't know if anybody has any questions, or I can help anybody with anything, but it's a wonderful experience. If I didn't have to do all the job development and coaching and all that, I'd do this 100% of the time.
Thank you, Tora.
I love it.
I have some questions for you, but I'll put a pin in it and Diane, do you want to jump in and share anything? And
Sure. So we're, pretty new just in general. I mean, my staff, particularly Kara, who's on this call, and I have both been providing employment services for a while, but in the actual supported employment, I did it through, part of the Disability Employment Initiative at Iowa Works. And I have some other experiences. But the actual like working within like the IVR system and the MCO system, that's all kind of new to us. We just started billing our first Medicaid client last month. So we're babies. We've had one person who went all the way through the process, just got to meet that person. What I was thinking was really like, sometimes I think about, I'm old and I've had a couple of different careers, most of which I did not suck at. But when I very first got out of college, I was a receptionist at a home builder. I really was terrible at that job. So truly, and if I hadn't quit the day before, I would have gotten fired when I didn't get the checks out to all the contractors. Anyway, but if somebody had said, well, she's a horrible receptionist, so therefore I don't think she could be the director of program, that's not, I think I'm decent at this. So that's, it's different. And so the first person that we worked with, had a auditory processing situation, and had a lot of failed work attempts. And I think the family was mostly looking at what is something that she can do, because she's failed at like working at these sort of what people think of as easy jobs. I think it made it hard for people to picture what she could do that was higher. But she had a lot of musical background. And it kind of turned out, and it was interesting because I just never really thought about it before. She was able to get a job. We did some stuff. She actually got to tour around and ride the tour bus with the Nadas. For you guys who don't know, it's a band. Got some experience with a guy who does music management and kind of a roadie. He sort of took her under his wing. And the thing is I know that she has an auditory processing problem, but when she starts talking to Jerry, who talks that music, audio, visual stuff, or the audio stuff, I don't know what they're talking about. They're talking and I can't even replicate their conversation because I didn't understand the words. But it seemed to me but based on being able to watch it, that once you got her talking in like almost code switching into the audio stuff, that we were losing a lot of the audio processing problems. Like it's a different language, and it's a language that I don't know. I don't understand how it works, but I understood that I could see it work. And so she was able to get a job as an AV tech. And I don't think that would be in the direction that this would have gone had that not been the case. So other than that, we've got a couple of people who were in process, a couple of people who dropped out because of health release. I mean, it didn't have anything to do with customized discovery. They had other stuff going on in their life. And for me as a brand new program, I'm excited about the fact that I feel like we can build ourselves around this. The other thing that almost makes me teary-eyed, honestly, is we're a small program. Truthfully, I'm pretty much of a force kind of person. I'm a force. Okay. And so like, I am so happy that my staff are getting mentored from somebody who's not me, because that gives them multiple perspectives so they can develop themselves. And like look at different ways of doing things. And for a small, when you've got a small agency I mean, hopefully we won't be small forever, but right now we really are. It gives everybody a chance to learn from other people, which is not something you normally get in something that's the size that we are now. So that extra mentoring is the part that, and I'm fortunate that I have a staff that are really passionate about professional development. And so the fact that we're able to provide this to them, this extra professional development, is exciting to me.
I think that's a great thing to say. I mean, people that are interested in professional development, this is one of the best encompassing things that I've learned from Acre is Acre training. I mean, I've done the whole CESP, employment first, but this way of getting people employed is the best I've ever seen. And it totally changed my eyes on using straight job development, because now I use some of the techniques I learned on some of my tough cases I have in job development, or I'll ask for a reassignment to customized if I'm finding I'm having trouble. And I'll tell you who your best people to go to for are that is IVRS, at least in Cedar Rapids, has some of the best counselors you can work with. They will also send you some of the best people by recognizing those counselors. I got their phone numbers, just their personal phone numbers. I will call them up and I'll say, hey, I've been working with so-and-so, and I think we need to relook at that. And they'll say, that's fine. We're either going to send them into direction, or I'm totally in line. Let's put them on the list for CD because of what you have going. So I have the IVRS counselors, their phone numbers are right here. Talk to them, listen to them. Ours are fabulous here, the ones I work with. They know about CD. They are really good with it. They're being informed right along with everybody who is doing customized employment. So they should know if you have a case that could go that way, and they can assist you and consult you with it.
I agree with everything you say, Tori, except that I'll throw up my Des Moines counselors against yours any day. We got some pretty good ones here too.
Yeah, they are just fabulous. They are fabulous. So make them part of your team.
Yes, absolutely. Right, and it's a very collaborative process. I know many of the teams have already had great relationships with their VR office, and that's really helped and supported the process. But customized employment within itself is very dynamic and collaborative. And we really want the employment specialists working closely with the counselors and the other team members to, not only to say, hey, this is what's going on, but this is what I'm learning. And what do you think about this? And do you know anybody? And is there something I'm missing? And, again, we're always paying attention and talking about the benefits and assistive technology. And kind of all that stuff throughout. So yeah, absolutely. The counselor is such an important partner in all this. And again, we have a lot of counselors on. Some of you have experience with CE or Discovery. If you want to share any thoughts or experiences, please just feel free to jump in, and anybody else on the phone as well.
Some of the counselors too, they like to ask for parts of Discovery, like it used to be the old Discovery, like you do so much and then you'd send it in, or like you do the home visit and then you do neighborhood mapping, you'd send it in, then you do the activities and you send it in. Some counselors ask me to do a certain section, send it in, and then kind of wait to see, and I'll say, is everything good? We continue. And then, just so they can kind of have a look at where I'm at. And I'm more than happy to do that if they like that, because they kind of like to see how things are going.
Yeah. I think that's really important that, depending on, you said, your counselor and kind of those communication loops that you already have. Yeah, it's so important to be talking and updating each other kind of throughout that and supporting each other and brainstorming.
I'll just add into the customized discovery from, money follows a person, as we see people, leaving facilities and centers where they've been in shelter type workshops. It's a really good program that allows them to really explore their area, get to know their provider, also just get to know themselves as well, because they have gone from a very structured day of this is what you're going to do, and that's the only option. So they really get that choice and option through this program with the customized discovery. And as Iowa has a high number of individuals with intellectual disabilities and brain injury within nursing homes that are stuck there currently as we look to get those individuals out. They may have not had work in environments in the nursing home, but they want to work. So as this program grows and the service, goes to all these other providers, it's going to open up the opportunities for individuals with disabilities to not get kind of pivoted more towards day hab. So
Yeah.
you see a lot of amazing opportunities and growth for Iowa Services through these, and it's life changing for not only the provider, but it's also life changing for the person that we work with.
Thanks, Tyler. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Yeah, we would really like to see providers be able to partner with the transition team or teams around people to offer employment right as somebody transitions, instead of waiting for that transition or somebody to be quote unquote stable in their new community. Because as you said, it's a great way to get to know the person and then to support them and getting to know their community better, that community that's new to them. So a lot of benefit to that. Where I was curious when you mentioned about, the focus on strengths, and you mentioned some of the barriers that some of the employment seekers that you work with present with, right? And I just wondered if you could share a little bit about how we frame those, or when somebody that we're working with seems to have a lot of barriers to employment, or there seems to be a lot of quote unquote behaviors, right? I think are the words that we hear often. Kind of how you tackle or approach that in this process, or how you frame that.
I've had some interesting experiences with individuals that have, I don't consider them behaviors. I look at what they're doing and I try to ask myself, why is this person getting so upset, or why is this person feeling the need to rip up or tear up things or destroy things, and how can I help them relieve that anxiety or what's going on? So I have an individual comes in, likes to destroy stuff or rip stuff up. So I try to feel what's going on with the individual to start with, to make them feel that. Is it the transition? Is it the nervousness of coming to the new job? So basically it's a matter of putting myself in their shoes. What is causing this built up just need to do this? And so I kind of try to do a little research or a little background of why somebody just has massive anxiety for transition. And then I try to relieve that anxiety, or try to get him to relieve that anxiety, because it's actually causing this person that much pain when these things happen. So when I have somebody that I know has a lot of anxiety or might have a destructive behavior, I don't try to encourage it, but I do try to give them relief. So for this particular person, I just made up some fake things like that looked like he had destroyed some certain items. So I made some just boxes that were all wrapped up in duct tape, and I set them around to look like other things that he destroyed, which were boxes as well that were on the ground. And I made them available for him. So when he came in, if he had to release this energy, this built up energy, and he just had to do it, he wouldn't destroy anything. He's gonna bust up these fake boxes wrapped up with duct tape. And he also, when he gets very nervous or has this big anxiety, he likes to rip and tear and shred things, like his shirt or somebody else's shirt or jacket or shoe. So I just had a bag full of strips of cloth, or I had some booties that I'd used from going in a equestrian center in the back of my car, and I just shoved all this stuff in a bag. And all of a sudden he kind of started getting anxious, and so I'm like, here, have a booty. So I took the booty and he ripped it all up, and then he's fine. We had a couple destructive things I noticed the last time he went, and he had, all of a sudden he's getting all anxious, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, what can I do? So there were stickers on a garbage can or whatever. And you know what? I just let him take the stickers off and he's fine. So sometimes just not making a big deal out of what he's doing if it's not necessary. I think the thing is trying to figure out, instead of making a big hoo-ha over things and calling it, this person's having this behavior, just kind of trying to take a moment to calm down, relax, try to put yourself in their shoes and find out why this is happening.
Mhm.
And don't get all excited about it, because the first time it happened, I'm like, oh my gosh, don't we stop it, and tried to get into a physical thing, and that totally did not work. So don't do that. There's nothing you can do about it. Don't do it. It's not, believe me, this person was like 300 pounds. It's not happening. You're just making yourself get more, and the more excited I got, the more intent he was on pulling this thing apart. So the next time I'm like, okay, that was dumb, but I have to learn as I go. I'm like,
Absolutely.
I'm like up here going, so I had to research, and some of my job is, I do have to use my brain, and I have to go back from what I learned when I was a social worker, and I have to research some of the time of what is actually going on with him. So I'm like, okay, what would cause someone to do this? Or what did I learn in psychology about, anxiety? Or, you have to look back and start thinking, what did I learn in school? Or what did I learn that would cause this behavior? And I went back and read, somebody with anxiety will do some of the most extreme things because it physically hurts them when they're so frustrated that they will bust apart. What it's like getting a major rush of adrenaline to get rid of that terrible feeling they feel. And that's what he does. That transition for him is so difficult that he's got to get that release of adrenaline before he can actually even work. So what I did was replace it with false boxes, and then I'm going to start decreasing the boxes, and then just have some fabric, and then eliminate it altogether and see if that won't help him. But the other day, you guys ought to be known, he went to work and he just busted up a couple of the fake boxes and he was fine. Went right to work, left, no problem, nobody yelled, no big issue, and he had a good day at work. So it's baby steps.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I heard you say a lot of great things. Just to like wrap it up and sum it up is, you're paying attention to the environment, and we're paying attention to environments and how they impact people, and which environments they're at their best and when they're not, and kind of those elements. You definitely talked about, in my mind, positive behavior support, right? Paying attention to things that are happening around people and why they might be happening. And that really informs those conditions of employment, right? The things that must be present versus the things that should not be present, right? As it relates to people's employment and those work environments, right?
And
what conditions
the
need to
most
be in place.
important, yeah, and the most important is what's going on with him. It's person-centered, and it's what's going on with your employment seeker, and how you can relieve some of that anxiety to make it a gainful employment location if it's going to work. Because it might end up, I mean, if it continues, and he does not, that condition in that area doesn't work, then we'll not, and that doesn't get resolved, then I have to realize, and he's going to tell me it's not going to be a job match.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So those best support strategies, right? Which is things you've been learning all along the way. Yeah. As you go in that research, right?
Yep. And you've got to kind of keep that in your mind. If it's not a job match, you will know, because your candidate will be able to express that to you, either verbally or physically or whatever.
Right. Absolutely. I see here we're about 2:05. Anybody else want to share any questions or comments or stories? Or Vienna, do you want to share anything tied to the work? think here before we let people go here?
You guys did a great job. I wish I was a provider so I can do it.
That's great.
Especially Laura, you and Diane, yeah, we're very grateful that we have providers like you, and I hope that those who are on here consider doing that. Yeah, I think you covered it. I'm here if you guys have questions about customized discovery and diff. We are but a little thing, just because we are doing diff, just so that you all know. Some providers, we put out a call, like it was like back in February, and then we approved the providers, and the call was initially sent out to the providers who were already doing the pilot areas prior to this. And that was only purely because we were so far into the grant year one already that we knew that those were providers who had at least the foundation to doing customized discovery already. And so, but come October, hopefully we're going to, each year of the DIF grant, add more and more providers. And one of the unique things about this Disability Innovative Funds grant is that it's a call for innovation, right? And so when it's some innovative way, there's going to be a lot of creativity that is involved. And because of that creativity, we have to capture it somehow and see how that fits in terms of enabling our providers, our job candidates to have successful outcomes. And so that might include taking a look at, payment structure and things that we are paying for. So we are paying for some creative things that we're doing through the DIF grant that we normally don't do. And there are some providers right now that are doing customized discovery, but it's not under the DIF. And so would love for you to consider thinking about that. So that way you can help us kind of shape how we provide DIF going into the future, or shape how we provide customized discovery going into the future through DIF. There we go.
Yes. Thank you, Deanna. So if we don't have any further questions or comments, we'll see you back in June 8th at 1 p.m. Tyler Hansen with MFP is going to come and give us an update on some of the MFP projects around the SWOT analysis, the technology COP, and what's happening around transitions from the Resource Center, amongst other things. So come back June 8th at 1 p.m. You guys have a lovely rest of the day. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Diane and Tora, and everybody else. Good to see you all. Have a great rest of the day. I'm going to stop.